So today I'm going to work on my DeWalt 735 planer. I recently was milling up some pieces and had a 1/4 inch piece of maple that broke while I was milling it, and that end piece got caught up into the blade process and flew up into the dust collection, or the dust ejecting system. And when that happened, it broke one of the blades on the impeller fan that helps eject chips. So I ordered a new one. It was about $20, which isn't bad. And I just wanted to make a video. There are so many things that happen in a wood shop that, and so many people are intimidated by repairing their own tools. I just want to go ahead and make a video while I'm doing this, so that anybody who ever experiences that may have this same problem with this planer has a video they can take a look at and know how to fix it. It's a really easy fix, probably won't take but 15 or 20 minutes at the most, and it only requires a couple of tools. A screwdriver, an angled screwdriver is best because there's not a lot of room inside here and you have to take the fan housing apart. There's a couple of clips, so you'll need a screwdriver. A flathead will work really well just for popping the clips open. The screws on top you can take off with the tool that was included for blade changes. So let's get into it. So the fan that broke is inside right here. It's right in this section right here, and it's part of the chip ejector system. I did order a new one. I got this on eBay. It is a DeWalt service part. I'll show the part number here. And let me get this out and I'll show it to you. So this is the fan that broke. I broke a few of the blades off of here, at least one. There may be more than one that's broken. But what I'm finding now is that not only is the planer a whole lot louder since I broke it, but there's also a little vibration, and I'm seeing that vibration transfer onto my wood pieces, so I'm not getting as clean of a plane on them now because of the vibration that's created by that. So we're going to get into this. Gonna just use the tool that comes with it to take the top of the planer off, and just these 4 screws right on top, and the little pop right off. Once we're inside here, you'll see there's a dust shroud that directs the chips directly up into the chip ejector system. We won't need that again until we're ready to put it back together. Grab this and it just lifts right off. Set that aside. So inside you've got this chip ejector system right here. There's 3 screws that hold it on, and they're put together really well with risers on them. It makes them easy to get to, and they're just finger tight. These are part of the safety system too. Also, when you're working on your planer, make sure that you're unplugged. Safety first. I like to just drop these in a little channel that's right here. That way I don't lose them, misplace them, spend too much time looking for them when I'm putting it back together after changing blades and things like that. This is part of the safety system, this shroud. Not only does it direct the chips up, but there's an interlock over here that gets pushed down when this is screwed in place. Without that interlock engaged, the planer won't actually run. There's also another interlock right here on the lid, so without the lid on, you're not engaging that interlock, and your planer won't run there either. So let's get this shroud out of the way first. To remove the shroud, all you need to do is lift it just a little bit, move it that direction, and it'll come right out. So inside the planer, there's a plate right here that pushes down. When this is not engaged, the planer won't run, and that dust shroud actually sits right over the top right here and pushes down on it when it's screwed in place. The other interlock is inside this slot right here. So that piece of metal you see in there, when you put the lid back on, there's a fin that fits into that slot, and it pushes down on that interlock and engages a circuit. Without that interlock in place, you also can't start your planer. So we're going to work with this clip right here, and there's another one down underneath that you can't really see. I'll show it after I get it out, but it's the exact same style of a clip. So basically all you do is lift that up, and it's hard to lift. It's made to be tight, so it's easier to do this with a screwdriver. And then there are 2 screws that hold this fan assembly together, one here and one here. And you don't have a lot of room. You can see if I try and get a screwdriver in here, there's just not enough room to get a straight hit on that. So what I'm going to use is a driver bit on my ratchet, and that gives me a lot more room to work inside. So let me mount the camera back up. And I'm going to move you a little closer and drop you down so you can see a little better what we're doing here. So let's go ahead and disassemble this fan assembly. And really all you got to do is break them loose. Once they're loose, it's real easy just to use your driver bit by hand and take those off. And again, this little space over here, right here, is just a good place to throw your screws and stuff so you don't lose them when you're doing this. So we'll get this first one out, pull the second one out. Now there is also a nut that holds the impeller fan on, and I believe it's either a 1/2 inch or a 9/16, but I need to get this off so we can find that out. So there's the 2 screws, and you can see this still won't come apart, and that's because there's another one of these clips up underneath here. So you got to be able to get your hand in there and pop that clip. And if you can't get your hand in, again, a screwdriver is a good tool to use for this, but you got to be able to get the right angle, and you can see through the hole in the front over here, you can see that clip. So you can get down in there and pop it free. And I can't quite get that screwdriver in either, so let me grab another tool. Right back. So I've discovered that it's just a little easier to go through the front here with a real small screwdriver and pop that clip. Now once you've got that clip popped, there's a third one all the way on the bottom, and it is really tricky to get to. You just kind of got to feel around with your screwdriver until you get it. You can't really see it from anywhere. You can feel it if you put your finger back in there. And there is another way to do this. You can actually disassemble the whole shroud of the machine to get down to this. This whole yellow section comes off. You have to take the handles off, take the whole yellow section off. But that also requires that you take off your height gauge. And I don't want to do that because mine's nicely calibrated. Get that off. So we're going to have to pop that there. So you can see there are 3 clips. 1, 2, and the one on top is the third one. And then 2 screws. So 1, 2, 2 screws, third clip. You just set that out of your way. And this is the impeller fan. And you'll notice as you turn this, it's hard to turn because the interlock has this whole assembly locked together. So that'll be handy when you go to loosen this nut. So let me find the right wrench, and then we'll get that impeller taken off of there. So let me grab my wrench set here. I believe we need a 1/2 inch wrench. So I'm gonna grab a 1/2 inch here, jump right in here. Yep, that's a perfect fit, 1/2 inch. So you can see as you turn this, even though there's that interlock, it'll pop past that. So the way to stop that is to take your screwdriver, put it down into the fins, and then give that a turn. As soon as you lock that impeller in place, you'll be able to turn this nut. I'm going to use my ratchet side here. I recommend not taking it all the way off with the wrench. Get it as loose as you can get it. And that way you can get your fingers on it and not drop. There is a washer behind this nut. You don't want to lose the washer or the nut down into the blade assembly. So grab your nut, set it aside, grab the impeller and just pop it off, and you'll get the washer with it, and then the impeller comes right off. So you can see I broke a couple of blades on this. That piece of wood got bound up in there. As the dust comes up and through, the impeller blows everything through, and when you get a snap like that, this is a high-speed spinning impeller fan, so it's balanced. Once you break some pieces off, it's no longer balanced, and that's where all that vibration's coming from. So the other thing you notice is this is a keyed shaftway, so it's square all the way through, and there's a square spot on the shaft of the motor here. So let's grab that new impeller. Here's the new one. You can see all the fins are there, just like it should be. The back is a cooling fan, helps keep the motor cool when it's spinning. The front is an impeller fan for ejecting your chips. You just put that on there and turn it until it fits over the square. Put your washer back in place. Put your nut back in place. Tighten it down as far as you can get it by finger. And then again, take your screwdriver, put it through those impeller blades. And this is key when you're tightening. You don't want to over tighten this because you're just going to break another impeller blade with your screwdriver jammed in there. It just needs to be snug. It's a locking washer and a locking nut, so it'll hold up pretty well. Pass finger tight. Gonna put this in here and lock it in place one more time. Your other choice is you can hold your blade guard in place, but you got to be really careful because you don't want to get cut, right? And that's it. So this is also, the nut threads on here in such a way that when it's spinning, the nut will self-tighten and not come loose, similar to the arbor on a table saw. So this is where the difficult part becomes, because one of your clips is way down under here and it's really hard to get to. So make sure you lift this clip up out of your way. The other two are on their side, so they're still out of your way, and they're going to be a little hard to get to, so just be aware of that. You want to slide this in there, kind of put the bottom down, slide it in place, and now you got to be able to reach under there with your fingers and pop that clip in place. Make sure you're well seated. There's a little bit of a lip all the way around this. You want to make sure it's seated together, and then you can reach under there, grab the tip of that clip and pop it in place. If you're really lucky, it'll pop right in for you. So I'm having problems getting the bottom clip on, and it actually popped off and broke on me. It didn't actually break, it just came off the housing, and I can't get to it to put it back on the housing. So I'm going to go ahead and show how to take the rest of this housing off. There are 3 screws in this housing that hold it to the motor. So you need to take those 3 screws loose. To do that, you have to take the impeller out of the way. And just loosen these 3 screws up. Set them aside. Don't lose them. And certainly don't let them get down into the blade mechanism. So you can see the 3 screws here, 1, 2, 3, those hold this to the motor housing right here. The clip came off right here, and because of where that is, it's just really hard to get down in there and put the clip back in place. So now with the motor housing off, I can get this clip and we'll put it right back in place here. And all you got to do is open it up and let it snap into those holes. So now that clip's good, this clip's good, and this one, open it up and out of the way. And now we'll just put that housing back in place. Same process, just in reverse. There are 3 guide holes that the housing fits into on the motor. So just slide it into those 3 guide holes and get your screws started. And just finger tighten them to get started. That way you can get all 3 of them in place before you tighten them down. Once they're finger tight, make sure you torque these on pretty good. Don't break them, don't strip them, but definitely put a little bit of torque on these to make sure they don't come loose on you. It's not the heads on your Chevy. You don't need to bust out a torque wrench or anything, but get them good and snug. Okay, so that takes care of the inside housing. Now we'll go ahead and put the impeller fan back in place. Remember, the smaller blades go to the back, the larger blades to the front. Or smaller blades to the inside, larger blades to the outside. It's probably a better way to represent that. Get your nut started, get it as finger tight as you can get it. It does have a locking ring on it, so you're only going to be able to get it so far. And then put it on there. Get yourself a little tighten on it. Pop your screwdriver into those impeller blades in the back. Give it a little snug up. With that back in place, now we can take the outside housing, put it back in place. Reach under there, and now those clips are a little more free moving, so they'll clip right in place. Snap, there's one. And it helps if you have smaller hands. Big ass hands like mine do not make it easy to get in there. There it is. Snap. And then here's the one on top. Snap that one right in place. And now your 2 screws. Again, don't tighten these down too hard. You don't want to break the housing. Just snug them up real good. Make sure you get all your tools out of the inside of the inside of the machine before you reassemble everything. So I got a nice coating of dust in here. I'm gonna just wipe that off with my finger. Grab my blower. We'll blow some air through there. And now that we got that reasonably cleaned out, it's nice to have a good seal on here because it'll help keep the chips going up into the dust collector. So now we're going to take the shroud and put it in place. To do this, turn it upwards a little bit and you'll see on here it says close and open. You want it in that open position. There's a line right here that lines up with that line. Just put it down there in place and you'll feel it slip in, and then you can push it down into place. Start grabbing your thumb screws. I always start with this side and just put 1 or 2 turns on there. Make sure that you get all your screws lined up before you tighten them down. Work your way around. And do not cross thread these. They are part of the body assembly. There's no way to replace them. If you cross thread the threads that these screws go into, then your only choice would be to retap the threads, and then you need new bolts, which are not going to be as convenient and handy as these long finger tightenable bolts that they provide with it. Certainly you could re-engineer those and do them yourself, but better just not to cross thread them and have to worry about that. Ground wire out of the way there, not attached to hitting anything. Everything's nice and snug and tight. So now we're going to put the lid back on. Be sure to choose your feed direction on top of your lid. Make sure it's pointed in the right direction. Just finger tighten these 4. And then give them 1 good half turn or so after they're snug. Put your blade change tool back in place so you always know where it is. Now, the other problem I have with this machine is on the dust ejector port itself, and this is really common with these. It uses a 2-pin guide system to keep them in place. One side has a turning point that's utterly useless because your button here pushes in to put it in, and there's no turn channel on the other side for the button on the other side. So really what you have to do is lean it onto that, put your hole on the button on this side like that, lean it into place, push the button and snap it into place. And then to take it off, you just reverse the process. Now the problem here is when your dust collection hose is yanking on this thing from one side or the other side, sometimes it'll blow out the hole on the other side. And you can see I've actually blown the hole out on this side. So I went ahead and bought a replacement for that too. Again, these were $15 or $20 on Amazon. They're not bad, but all you need to do to replace that is just the same process. So I'll show you the difference here. You can see that this one is blown out and this one is a nice clean hole. So again, put your hole on the far side, put the pin through the hole on the far side, slide it on there, snap it in place until it clicks, and you're on there good and solid. And I use a quick disconnect on my 4-inch dust hose. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that in place. And this is where you run into the problem. This dust hose wants to come straight off the front because of the design of this. So you can get a 90-degree for this, which I do recommend, and I had one at one point and I cracked it and just haven't bought a new one yet. But your other choice is just to kind of get this up out of the way. You can put a wire around it, tie it off to the side, put a bracket on the side of your cart, whatever you need to do, but you want it out of the way so that your wood coming out is able to eject free. And if you just kind of push it over the side like this, the vibration's going to let it fall in front again. But we got our dust collection hooked up. I'm going to move you to the center here and raise this camera up real high. As high as I can get it anyway. Back you up a little bit so you can see both sides. And now that we got this thing all fixed, I've got at least one scrap around here we can use. Let's run a piece of wood through and make sure everything's working okay. Power plugged in. Gonna do just a test start to make sure all the interlocks are in place. And that is much, much quieter than it was with the broken impeller fan. With the broken impeller fan, it actually made the machine significantly noisier, and there was a vibration that was transferring through. I was seeing more blade marks on my finished pieces because of the extra vibration. So let's bring this down. This is almost a 1/4 inch already. So we're just going to give it one pass just to make sure everything's working good. And let me find my dust collector remote. If you ever hear that, stop your machine. We took a big chunk right off the end here because this piece of maple is a little brittle. And when I went through, I should have turned this piece around, and I did this intentionally because I wanted to show what can happen when you're working with a piece and you're going against the grain badly, especially when you get down to a thin piece like this. You can snap pieces off, and that piece that snapped off and went up into my dust collection is what caused the broken impeller in the first place. So I'll open this back up and get that piece out of there so it doesn't happen again. But that's just a little lesson on that. But you can see the machine's running good again. It's much quieter than it was before the repair, and we're ready to use our DeWalt planer again. Hope this video helps anybody else who's run into this issue. If you have any questions, please feel free to text me on private messages on the app, and I'm always happy to answer any questions. Have a good one.